Every character should want something, even if it's only a glass of water. These are the words of American novelist Kurt Vonnegut as one of his essential rules for the craft of storytelling. Whenever I encounter a story that resonates with me, whether it's a novel or a film or an anime, I find myself measuring it against this rule. In particular, I want to talk about Cyberpunk Edgerunners because on the surface it feels like an odd fit for this rule. Normally, every main character in a story has their motivations front and center. Whether it's becoming a legend, saving or resurrecting somebody, or they're just hungry and, thirsty, the dreams and aspirations of the main character are introduced almost as soon as the character themselves. But this isn't clearly the case for the main character of Edgerunners, David. When we first meet him, he's begrudgingly attending an elite Arasaka academy. His mother, Gloria, is exhausted, spread thin just trying to keep up with the crushing financial payments required to keep him in that school. But this is her dream, to provide an education that proves every naysayer wrong. She wants him to rise up through the corporate ranks and eventually reach the top floor of Arasaka Tower, where the high-ranking professionals go. Essentially, like almost every other hardworking mother, she just wants her son to get an education and have a stable, easier life. The thing is, though, this isn't really David's dream. He's resistant to it. In fact, he wants to drop out of school entirely, but he backs away from that idea the moment he sees that it would emotionally hurt his mother. He stays because he cannot bear the thought of failing her. Like so many other teenagers, and like myself at that age, there isn't really a clear vision of the future. There's no highly motivated dreams to achieve, no drive to become someone else, no conscious effort to run towards or away from a goal. Life is simply happening, one day at a time. The people and environment around David dictate their direction, much like the wind determines the movements of a falling leaf. I call this living by inertia. To be clear, living by inertia isn't necessarily a bad thing. There are things that David truly enjoys, like the black market BDs he gets from Doc, but he isn't exactly following the rules that Vonnegut prescribed for good storytelling. He isn't reaching for a glass of water, he's just waiting to see where the current takes him. But as the story of Edgerunners continues, that inertia is violently interrupted. David's mother is killed, caught in the crossfire between a gang and their corporate target. In an instant, the only person providing him any direction is gone. And when left alone, David's dreams and desires remain present but limited. As he processes the grief of losing his mother, he makes a radical choice. He takes her final legacy, the military-grade spinal implant Sandevistan, and has it installed. He uses it to take revenge on a former classmate who insulted his mother's memory. But the revenge isn't his true motivation, it isn't his dream. Once he has processed this initial wave of grief, Edgerunners doesn't devolve into a standard revenge plot. David doesn't try to hunt down the gang responsible for the crossfire that killed his mother. He doesn't try to tear down the school that never fully accepted them, nor does he really attempt to dismantle the corporate system that crushed them both into poverty. In this moment, his revenge isn't a desire, it's a reaction, and it's simply a way of moving through the pain. After the dust settles, David finds himself back in the same state of inertia he occupied before his mother's death. The world continues to happen around him, and David is simply left trying to figure out what happens next. While wandering the city, he meets Lucy, who sees how naturally he handles the Sandevistan and invites him to work the subway with her. That night, in the quiet of her apartment, she opens up about the one thing that she wants more than anything: to escape Night City, escape Earth, and live on the moon. It's striking to me that the first 2 episodes of Edgerunners, we are introduced with the protagonist alongside 2 distinct dreams. While David is our main character and the series follows his journey, the dreams belong to the women in his life. First, there's his mother's dream for him to ascend to the top of Arasaka Tower, and then there's Lucy and her dream to physically and emotionally leave the world behind. These are the 2 primary anchors of the narrative. They exert a massive gravitational pull on David. While other characters certainly have their own clear motivations, it is these 2 specific dreams that ultimately define David's orbit, to the point where they basically become his own. Other characters are introduced, and most are given something to chase after, even if it's just a metaphorical glass of water, more eddies, better tech, or more notoriety. But when it comes to the north and south poles of the story, these are the forces that define David's coordinates. We are introduced to his entire world through the lens of these 2 women and what they want for him and themselves. Fast forward to the final moments of the story, David is desperately taking his last remaining immunosuppressants required to hold back his cyberpsychosis, a violent mental illness that is caused by heavy use of cyber augmentations. His reliance on the Sandevistan has already pushed him to the brink, and he's finally sent over the edge by the cyberskeleton, a massive mech-like rig that has replaced his very limbs. As he loses his grip on the world, he begins to succumb to the madness. Yet, even as his mind unravels, the act of a final kiss with Lucy brings him a few moments of total lucidity. In those moments of clarity, he tells her that his dream was never his own, it was hers.
But you never had to save me. All I ever wanted was for you to live.
I ain't worth it, Lucy. Besides you, I got nothing left. But you still have a dream to stick around for. Need you to see it through. That's my dream. Honestly, nothing else ever really mattered.
David dies moments later, fighting the head of Arasaka's security, Adam Smasher, to buy Lucy the time that she needs to escape. The final scenes of Edgerunners show Lucy fulfilling her dream standing on the surface of the moon. When the story ends, I couldn't stop thinking about that piece of writing advice, that every character needs a desire of their own, and how it applies to David. Did David actually have a dream? I don't think he does. In short, David is living for other people's dreams. But is this bad writing? To pull the question out of the realm of art and into the world of ethics and existentialism, is this a bad thing? Is it a flaw to have a character whose only want is for the people that they love to reach their destination? And more importantly, is it a bad thing to be a person in the real world that does the same exact thing? These questions, both about life and the art that imitates it, lead me to this conclusion. Love is the asterisk next to the rule that every character must have their own dream. When we talk about David, we aren't just talking about a lack of ambition. We're talking about a specific type of devotion where the self begins to dissolve. There is a way of loving someone so intensely that they cease to be a pleasure or partner at all, and instead become your very being. I can't help but think that David mirrors this. He views Lucy's existence not as part of his world, but as his world. This is why David accepts his death so graciously, even eagerly. He understands that if Lucy lives, if she reaches the moon and completes her journey, his own purpose is fulfilled. He doesn't need to survive to get what he wants. Love, in many ways, is a parasite. It's beautiful, but it consumes its host. Now, maybe that description creeps you out, and you wouldn't be alone. Many would look at this kind of bond and see something far from healthy. They would call it codependency. But whether you judge this love as a tragedy or a triumph is beside the point. The point is that love is the one force capable of overriding the self. It's the one thing that can make a character or person stop wanting for themselves and start wanting to be the vessel for someone else's dream. So yes, in a well-written story, every character should want something. They should have dreams, motives, and clear desires that drive the plot forward. However, love is the wild card in this equation. It's the one human experience powerful enough to shift the axis of a person's universe until their own wants, desires, and dreams are no longer about themselves, but about someone else's survival and success. Whether it's the protection of a mother and her child, the duty of a son towards his parent, or the passion between two lovers, love blends the narrative lines that separate us. It blurs the boundary where one's self ends and another begins. When I look back on the story of Cyberpunk and the character of David, I find this shift to be more than acceptable. Whether we judge it aesthetically as a piece of art or existentially as a question of ethics, David's journey mirrors a profound reality in our own experiences. Sometimes the most human thing you can do is to realize that your own story doesn't have to end with your own success. At the age of 18, David is a product of living by inertia, a high schooler navigating a neon-lit dystopia. His life isn't defined by grand aspirations, but by a numbing comfort of distractions. It's a state that I find deeply relatable, the feeling of being a mere passenger in my own modern-day dystopia. But then comes the pivot that defines so many young lives. The introduction of a love so intense that it evolves the self. The line between David's own desires and the dreams of his significant others start to blur and then vanish. And so, yes, Mr. Vonnegut, I agree that every character should want something, even if it's only a glass of water. But sometimes you can love someone so much that what you want is for them to have what they want. This exception for me reframes the entire story of Edgerunners. This story isn't about a dream becoming true. It's about a love being proven true. In the neon-soaked terminals of Night City, David's want wasn't to survive the system or to ascend to the top of Arasaka Tower. It was to be the fuel for someone else to ascend beyond the city itself, to leave the rot behind and find a new life on the moon. Love ensures that when Lucy reaches her destination, David isn't just a casualty of her journey. He's fulfilled by it. Her success is his final, finished act. And with that, thanks for watching. I'm Joelle Fish, and I'll catch you later, June.